moment. Well, listen, man, it's Tiger Woods. It's not embarrassing at all. All right, your top 10 NFL free agents, according to Matt Bowen, as the clock starts to tick. T. Higgins leads the way after posting a career-best 10 touchdown catches last season, opposite of Cincinnati's Triple Crown winner in Jamar Chase. Sam Darnold, the top quarterback listed after tossing 35 touchdowns last season. And what about Super Bowl standouts from the Eagles D-line who got after Patrick Mahomes relentlessly? Josh Sweat, Milton Williams are also about to hit the open market. So we're about to play a little buy or sell as we welcome our resident GM, Louis Redick, ahead of the free agency window opening on March 12th. Louis, good morning. Fantastic to see you. Matt Bowen has that article picking the best team fits for some of these notable free agents. So we're going to do a little buy or sell. Let's start. Russell Wilson to the Giants. Louis, you buying or selling that?
I'm selling it, Gary. I don't necessarily like this fit. I think for the New York Giants, look, obviously they're faced with a decision to make in terms of do they go the veteran route to try and really, jumpstart this football team in a situation where the coach and the general manager could be in trouble at the end of this year, or do they try and move up in the draft and get a quarterback that they like and someone who they can build around, or do they try and go both? Quite honestly, if I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation, I would want Justin Fields. I love the dual threat capability of Justin. I love the kind of things that maybe Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, could do to really unleash and unlock a lot of the skills that he has. So if I'm going the veteran route and I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers situation, it's Justin Fields for me. If I'm really going the veteran route and I can swing a trade, I'm going all in for my guy Matthew Stafford.
Okay. And that's a juicy little nugget to nibble on as well. A couple of quarterbacks in their age 36 season. Might get to that in a second. Future Hall of Famer Zach Martin to the Chiefs. Louis, you buying or selling that?
I'm buying this, especially if Trey Smith is someone who Brett Veach has to let hit the free agent market and isn't able to strike a deal that really makes sense as far as fitting him into their salary cap structure for 25 and beyond. Look, Zach is a guy who dealt with a few injuries at the end of last year. I think he dealt with a shoulder, dealt with some ankle issues, but he has been a stalwart at right guard, and he would be a plug and play on this Kansas City offensive line. That the interior three should be locked down next year with Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney moving back in the left guard, and then if you move Zach Martin in the right guard again if Trey Smith leaves. The situation for Kansas City is the tackle situation. That is where I promise you right now, Brett Veach is in the film room right now trying to figure out how they solidify that. And that's, just kind of leads into a whole bigger discussion about Kansas City and what they do on this offensive line and how they fortify it given the embarrassment they had in the Super Bowl. But Zach Martin would make sense at right guard.
Patrick Mahomes, seeing this as a buy, is like, hey, I'll chip in. I'll throw in a couple of bucks. All right, the Vegas Raiders have the number 6 pick in this year's draft. That in mind, should they go after Sam Darnold, assuming he doesn't get tagged by the Vikings? Buy or sell that?
Yeah, I'm going to sell this one too. Look, I think Sam needs to be in the perfect fit, in the perfect type of offense. He needs to be in an offense like he just came from with Kevin O'Connell. He needs to be in a Kyle Shanahan type of offense, a Sean McVay type of offense. I like Chip Kelly a lot. And I think Chip is going to infuse the Vegas Raiders with a lot of diversity and a lot of multiplicity in terms of the way they're going to attack offensively. But Sam needs to go to exact right place. He better either stay in Minnesota or maybe try to get out there to L.A. again if the dominoes start moving and Matthew Stafford leaves. That's the kind of place I'd like to see him at. Okay,
I'm noticing one focal point here, and you need some dogs at receiver, and Vegas doesn't have a Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison. That's Louis Redick joining us this morning on SportsCenter. He's hanging out with us all morning, so we'll see him in a little bit. All right, Joe Burrow said, hey, is T. Higgins about to be teed off with another season under the franchise tag? Listen, there are worse ways to make $26 million in a year, I can assume, which would be his salary if he was tagged and the team was not able to get him a new extension before the March 4th deadline, which is what the Bengals reportedly want to accomplish to keep him in Cincy to run opposite their Triple Crown winner in Jamar Chase. Kimberly A. Martin joining us now on SportsCenter to dive into the financials and discuss the looming decision for the Bengals. Kimberly, what updates do you have for us on the possibility of T. Higgins staying in Cincinnati?
Yeah, good morning, Gary. The likelihood is good. The expectation is that they're going to tag him. Now, this would be the second season in a row that the Bengals would use the franchise tag if that's the route that they want to go. Here's why it's different. It feels like the organization understands what it has and wants to, they got to try to get Jamar Chase signed to a long-term deal. Trey Hendrickson, their best defensive player, wants a long-term deal. And obviously, T. Higgins feels like he's actually a number one and he deserves money. But the franchise tag will allow them to at least get until mid-May to work out a long-term extension. And if not, if he has to play under a second tag, he would make about $26 million.
He had 10 touchdowns last season. To your point, that's wide receiver one statistics that he's putting up. And Joe Burrow has been very adamant in saying we need to come out of our pockets and pay these dudes because we're in a championship window. And to that note, Kimberly A., what are you hearing about the possibility of Burrow maybe restructuring his massive contract to sort of help that happen?
Gary, here's why this is so fascinating. Joe Burrow has put the Bengals under public pressure because since December, he has been talking about how we need to keep T. Higgins along with these other guys for us to make a run. He said, look to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions. They're playing by some sort of rules. They're figuring out how to have a lot of high talented guys paid to high contracts. So whatever they're doing, if it means, having to defer some of my money to later, converting some of it into a signing bonus, deferred so I take later less on, more money later on, then great. I think Joe is sort of like, whatever we need to do to keep these guys, that is what we need to do.
5 years left on his current deal. Does Joe Burrow have? His cap rises from $29.7 to $46.3 million next season. That's the sixth highest across the NFL. Kimberly A. joining us this morning on SportsCenter, hopping into those financials in sync. All right, back to the Shield. Aiden Hutchinson on his way to a Defensive Player of the Year award last season in his third with the Lions. He finished the season with more sacks than games played in, unfortunately. 7.5 sacks in 5 games before breaking his leg week 6 against Dallas. He missed the rest of the year, still finished with the team lead in sacks on the year. This rehab video, though, that he shared shows the progress that he and that leg are making. Hutchinson's return will boost the Lions defense that was marred by injuries late last season. The Lions will also need to replace both coordinators this upcoming season. Even so, ESPN bet giving Detroit the 5th shortest odds to win the Super Bowl next season, behind the Eagles, the Ravens, Chiefs, and the Bills, which indicate to me that their championship window certainly remains open. As promised, our resident GM, Redick, back here for open or closed segment on championship windows. Just saw Aiden Hutchinson doing some rehab on that leg. As he goes, so too does the defense. Lewis, is the Lions Super Bowl window still very much open?
Without a doubt, Gary.
Yeah,
for sure it's open. Look, I think right now, this roster really returns intact. When you're talking about the players on the football field, all the key components are back on the offensive side. The offensive line remains intact. Kevin Zeitler is going to be a free agent, but the primary components are there. The ball carriers are there. The explosive playmakers, the plus 20-yard rippers, as I like to call them, they're there. The quarterback is back. St. Brown is back. On the defensive side of the football, look, Aiden's return to health is going to be huge. They need a counterpart for him on the outside. Aleem McNeil just needs to stay healthy. In the back end, think of all the people that are going to come back now who are just going to be healthy when you're talking about the secondary. So I think this team's Super Bowl window for sure is open. They have a Super Bowl caliber culture. I know that they're going to have to replace both coordinators, but look, John Morton is up to the challenge. Kelvin Shepard on the defensive side of the ball is the new defensive coordinator. They're up to the challenge because Dan Campbell is that dude as a head coach. Detroit's going to be just fine.
Lions had 28 players on IR at some point.
There you go.
Over the course of the last season. All right, Lewis, this is a good one. The Dallas Cowboys championship. Hey, I know. Hey, I just sometimes read what's in the prompter. Championship.
I hear you.
Championship window open or closed?
Yeah. Look, I mean, was it ever? Well, you know what? I guess you could say
Correct.
It was open
Cracked.
at some point. But yeah, like right now, in terms of this discussion, no, I don't believe it's open because I think there's just a whole lot of there's a lot more questions than there are answers right now. There's a lot more questions than there is optimism as far as do they have the kind of firepower and the kind of structure in place to really be a championship caliber football team. And it starts at the top with ownership, and then it's going to trickle down to Brian Schottenheimer and exactly who is he going to be as a leader, as a head coach. On the offensive side, we know how much cap space that Dak Prescott eats up and how much cap space they don't have for the 2025 season, how reluctant Jerry is to spend cash in the free agent market. It always comes down to how well they're able to draft and develop, and that can be hit or miss. So I don't know how this really adds up to them being able to make any headway in the NFC right now, and really, quite honestly, even in their own division.
For everybody who is about to tweet me that say, oh, all you guys do is talk about the Cowboys, I will listen to all your tweets. Tweet at me, at Randy Scott. ESPN. All right, Lewis, last one. Last one for you. This is actually a really good one. What about San Francisco, perennially an NFC powerhouse, but what's going on with their championship window?
Yeah, I still think it's open because, again, when you're talking about a top-down structure and you look at John Lynch and you look at Kyle Shanahan and some of the changes that they have made to their coaching staff, and then when you look at the personnel on this football team, on the offensive line in particular, Trent Williams is getting up there in age. The window could be closing here at some point in time. And, if you start losing players like that, they have depth at the running back position, regardless of whether or not Christian McCaffrey is someone who can stay healthy to this point. I still believe in Brock Purdy. They need to get healthy at wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk has to come back strong. They have other pass catchers. George Kittle is still very good at the tight end position. And on the defensive side of the ball, I still think they have enough playmakers at all three levels to where Robert Saleh, now returning as a defensive coordinator, can make that work, and they can go ahead and see if they can challenge for a Super Bowl title or a Super Bowl berth, at least in the NFC.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we saw that video on so many of their offensive hitters, the Ayuks of the world, the CMCs of the world. Some questions about Debo wanting to be in the Bay, but obviously those will be answered before the start of next season. Louis Riddick joining us this morning, dropping some knowledge on SportsCenter. Thanks, Louis.